Welcome everybody to episode 84 of Unhacked. This is the 10th in our little mini series. Mario, I'm not sure it's so mini. We've been talking about this for what seems like forever.
Over 2 months now. Over 2 months.
Yeah, and don't forget these are the basics. I'll probably keep saying that. Jesus. So let's do some quick introductions. I think people, if you're listening, you already know this. You're bored out of your mind. But so what? I'm Justin Shelley, CEO of Phoenix IT Advisors. And at our company, what we like to do is help businesses use technology to build their wealth, build their business, get more clients, make more money, and then protect that from the infamous Russian hackers, the government fines and penalties, because they've always got to have their piece, and then the class action lawyers who will come out along and, hoover up whatever's left after your whole world's blown up. So we like to prevent all that because it's a really bad day. Mario, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and who you do it for.
Yeah, Mario Zaki, CEO of Mastek IT, located in New Jersey, right outside of New York City. We specialize in giving business owners peace of mind, knowing that their businesses are secure. And we work with small to medium-sized businesses in pretty much nationwide, not only protecting them from those Russian hackers, but from all other hackers, lawyers, and the new type of ambulance chasers.
You're non-discriminatory. Equal opportunity hacking. I don't know. All right. So like I said, we've been going on about this because Mario, do you remember? It's been a while. I think it might have been 2 years now. We did a month long, I think it was October, Cybersecurity Awareness Month, where we're like, let's break it down into, 3 or 4 parts. Protect your data, protect your people, protect your technology, policies and procedures, right? And I'm like, that's it. It's simple. And now we're kind of revisiting that, but doing a little bit more of a deep dive. So we've already done 9 of these things. And I'll be honest, when we started this thing, I kind of expected our audience to drop off because it's boring. But as we mentioned last week, we've actually been seeing exponential growth and downloads and interaction. And so I'm glad that people are finding this content useful. I'm just going to make a shameless plug right now. If business owners who need the information, please share, help us get the word out, because really, there's nothing in it for us financially. We don't, we just sit here week after week and we educate and we try to help the community. Help us do that. Help us not have to spend a bunch of money marketing, because it's all good information. All right. Pitch over. Today's topic, last week we talked about cloud and software as a service security. Today, again, is going to be a little bit of a repeat. We're talking about vendor risk and third-party access. This is not the first time we brought it up. Repetition is by design, but it does definitely fall as one of the key components of basic cybersecurity. So Mario, I'm gonna throw this to you to start with, and I just want to ask you: have you ever done this for your clients? Have your clients ever come to you and asked for any version of a vendor assessment? Does that ever come up in your conversations?
I mean, I off the top of my head, I don't remember last time they wanted us to analyze a vendor. They usually will do, their due diligence and check out and maybe demo the product and stuff like that, but they won't necessarily, they come back and say, do you think these guys are secure? What we do see a lot is, we have customers that will reach out to us and say, hey, we're looking to work with this company or prospect or subcontractor or, general contractor, and they've sent us these vetted questions. Can you help answer the IT questions that they're asking for? And they're pretty much saying like, how often are they updating? How, is 2FA, enabled throughout the company, and so on.
Yeah. I don't know that it's every client, but I'm with you. Several of our clients have come to us with this questionnaire, and they just kind of throw it at us and say, hey, my insurance company or this vendor or that client is asking for this information. I don't know it. Fill it out. I can't speak for them, but I can speak for my perception of their, this just seems like an annoyance. But what I would love to do today is, teach the audience that this is kind of your golden opportunity to follow the example. If people are vetting you or us collectively, it tells you that there's something to this and that this is probably pretty important. And we should probably start turning this on its head and taking that same questionnaire or, our own version of it and pushing it out to our vendors, our contractors. Because, I should have pulled the number. I was looking at statistics and I wanted to use it, but then I saw that it was from 2019. So I'm like, I don't know, I can't use that, but I'm going to anyways. What I saw was that the average business, I'm assuming we're talking about very large businesses, but the average business has 89 vendors that have direct access into their network and or their data. Now, here's the pop quiz. I'm throwing this out to the audience, and I'm going to start putting this stuff out on social media. I really would love to know your feedback on this. How many vendors in your business have access to anything proprietary or personal or otherwise, what data that should be secure? And Mario, I'm not gonna ask you to answer that on the spot, because I'll be honest, I don't know my exact number, but I definitely know my key players. We've got some key players that if they were breached, we're cooked. Like that's a bad day for all of us. Do you remember episode 34?
Yep. Yeah, with with coffee, right?
With our good friend Robert Choffey. Choffey. He taught me how to say his name, and then I just butcher it every time. Hopefully he's listening. Great guy. But he went through the most nightmarish thing that any of us can imagine. And, we in this industry have to be especially careful, because if we get breached, and this is the stuff, hey, I'll be honest, and Mara, I'm going to out you a little bit. We're talking about this before we hit record, and it's like, do we talk about this? Do we admit that, how vulnerable our industry is? And you, dear business owner, dear customer of MSPs, do you understand how dangerous the relationship is with your MSP? And if you don't, that's probably more scary than knowing the reality of it. So I do want to hit it on the head. And, going back to episode 34, I am so grateful that Robert was willing to come on and talk about his story. And, you know what, Mario, I'm going to punch you because I feel like I'm talking a lot. Just give the elevator pitch, 30 seconds. What happened to Robert and his business?
So he is an MSP, and one day he came in and found out that not only was all his computers encrypted with a ransom note, but all his customers were encrypted with a ransom note. So his remote management software got breached by a hacker, and they ended up pretty much going in, pushing a code using his tool to all his customers, and it wasn't just like something that you could easily just push a button and undo. They had to spend, I think he said, weeks, if not months,
with help. I love to say this about our industry, that we can come together in cases like that, and a lot of what we might call competitors, right? Other IT companies, other MSPs in the area, out of the area, rallied around him. And that's one of the things he's done moving forward is he's working to build a community of MSPs that do come together in cases like this. So again, my hat's off to him. But what I love about it is that he was able to come through this. He came out the other end stronger. Was it a nightmare? Absolutely. Is he, in a better place now? I would say yes. I think he would say yes if he was here. So I want to make this example of how dangerous our vendors can be and how important it is that we vet our vendors. I will say in this case, because I'm never going to scare people without giving them, how do you fix it? And, when I asked Robert, I was like, what did you learn? What was the lesson? Because it's not like he was working with a vendor who he hadn't vetted. This is a very well-known security vendor. And there's other examples of security vendors who have been breached. SolarWind was one. It was breached by, I don't know how many people up the supply chain, how many companies up the supply chain where that vulnerability was introduced. But when I asked him, I said, Robert, what did you learn from this? Could you have prevented it? What would you do different? His answer was frameworks. It was just one word. And I have lived and died by that ever since. It's, and part of the frameworks, so I've got a platform where I can go through all, and by the way, a framework is just a list of kind of questions, I guess, or things to check off as far as security goes. These are the industry standards, the best practices that we talk about frequently. And one of the assessments that comes with my pack of frameworks is a vendor assessment, and I've used it. And I'll tell you, the first time I used it, when I started asking the vendor to document, to provide documentation of their security, they went quiet. There was no response. They had to run it up the legal chain. They had to run it up the the flag over here and the flag over there, and I never got anything back from them. So I refused to do that integration. And it got a little tense with my client, because they're just like, we'll accept the risk. And I actually had them sign off on it that they would accept the risk, but it's like, I still can't do that. I still cannot do that for you. So I went and I built my own integration. At least I know what's going on, and I know where that data lives, and I could protect it, because this vendor wouldn't do it.
Speaking from like a vendor or developer, point of view, and I think I've talked about it on the show a couple times. We spent some time developing like a system where sending text messages for patients and stuff like that, like a patient reminder. And the first phase is kind of getting everything together, making sure it's working, testing it, and trying to get as many people on the platform and stuff like that. Security, that's your main focus. It's pretty much getting people, you've invested money and you're trying to get people on, or companies to purchase the product, and then later on you'll go back and improve anything, fix some bugs. One of the things that and I don't want to say I purposely did, I definitely didn't purposely do it, but looking back at it now, and this is something that I did like many moons ago, like if I were to do it now, the first thing that I would be focused on is doing it securely, making sure that everything is secure. And now, the big thing right now in 2026 is AI, and people are, programming, developing stuff. I mean, we're doing it ourselves, we're doing different platforms and building stuff for customers. The first thing that I'm putting into AI is this has to be done securely with, proper, encryptions and stuff like that. The stuff that we're building, we're using like Microsoft, single sign-on certificate, so that way easier to track. Look at previous episodes that we've talked about this stuff. But in your example, those people probably they were probably new. They probably reached out to your customer. The price was probably right. It was probably resolving a pain point for them. And the fact that they weren't actually easily answering, security questions is probably because they didn't give it much thought. They probably thought, as long as we put in a username and password, we should be secure. But Justin, as you know, there's hundreds of other factors that go into it.
Well, in this particular case, and I'm not, I don't know if you're talking, who didn't give it much thought? Was it the client? Was it the vendor that I was?
The vendor.
Okay. So, the thing about the vendor is, when I started probing, they were pointing to a third party. Like, they didn't even develop their own software. And I mean, it was nuts. It was crazy. And I have to be careful what I say. Here's what I'm going to say. I had another experience recently where a different client came to me, and they had been evaluating platforms. They wanted to make some changes, and it was a file sharing platform that they need. They're a financial institution, so this is something that's very sensitive, right? Very, very sensitive. And I love that the first question was not, hey, set an appointment with this company to get this up and running for us, which was the previous example that I gave. This, because that other company, they'd already signed a contract. It was like they were mad that this wasn't getting done because they'd already signed and paid. So the pressure was on huge for me. That's why it got a little bit tense. In this other case, he came to me and said, hey, Is this company secure? Here's what we wanted to do. Here's what we were evaluating and why we're wanting to make a change. But his first question wasn't, how do we implement it? It was, is it secure? I loved that.
That's good.
And as we started talking here again, and this is the nice thing about where we're moving in the world of technology, is we decided that we could probably build something just as secure and less expensive in another platform. So we're going to kind of build it out ourselves. I won't give the details.
The fact that he asked you that question, he must listen to our show.
I would imagine. I mean, everybody does, Mario. The numbers don't lie.
Exactly.
So, the point here is, we always you'll hear people talking about the weakest link is this, the weakest link is that. In the security world, it really can be said that the weakest link is your least secure vendor, and the problem is it's really, really hard to know. So, so let's go with that. How do we know that the vendors we're working with are secure? Mario, what are your thoughts there?
How do we know? We don't know, unless we ask, and we ask the correct, questions.
Yeah, I mean, there it is. So step one, ask, ask the right questions. Let me, if we go back to some of our earlier episodes in this little mini series, we've talked frequently about if we don't know what we have, we can't secure it. So this is another example where step one, I mean, maybe this is step half, we have to know what vendors have access to our systems. And, if nothing else, you sit down with a pencil and paper and you start writing them down. What different applications do you use? And what kind of data do they have access to? And have you vetted them from a security standpoint?
Well, I mean, let me circle back to a couple seconds ago, or a couple minutes ago. We were talking about, and we were hesitant. We weren't sure if we wanted to mention this about Robert Coffee. I'm gonna always say Coffee, but
Chaffee.
We're gonna spend half the episode talking about his name. But other IT companies or IT guys or MSPs, the problem in what we see a lot is whenever we're working with a one-man shop, or I was a one-man shop for a long time. Problem is investing in the right tools. So your IT company has access to your servers, has access to your Microsoft 365, to all your computers and stuff like that. What are the, even if you're vetting a new MSP, or you're, wanna, during your quarterly business reviews with your existing IT person, you need to ask, you need to vet and say, okay, well, what are you doing to keep our existing data secure?
Yeah.
Because, me and you were sitting there talking, and we were like, okay, well, do we talk about this? Do we want to, call out anybody else? And, we decided, like, well, we know we're doing it because we've seen, a colleague, Robert, do it, and he put in some safeguards in place, and, he has the proper checks in place, and we did the same thing. We know that in order to access any of our customers' information, you have to be in our office. You can't just remotely, you can't just log in from anywhere. We can use the VPN and connect to it and stuff like that, but you can't just connect, to any of our customers' computers just randomly from like a Starbucks. Do you have, does your existing IT person have that? What kind of MFA, connections do you have? How are you, where are your passwords stored and stuff like that? Because unfortunately, some of these smaller IT people, they don't invest in that stuff until they start making more money, or they are required to do it by certain customers, and they don't really put that into place. So they will, a lot of times we'll talk, well, how's your IT person connecting? Oh, he's got TeamViewer installed on all the computers. And by like right away that, you see that, when I see that, I cringe right away because, TeamViewer is one of those systems that if it's not, installed correctly or not used the paid version of it, can be very, unsecure.
Right. And as you're talking, I'm realizing we probably need to clarify a little bit because this is very similar to what we talked about last week. We talked about cloud and SaaS security, software as a service. Uh, there's a whole lot of overlap here, but this is like you just mentioned. This is when we've given other people access into our systems. So TeamViewer is a perfect example, and we've talked about that one in the past, especially in the world of manufacturing. It's really common for a vendor to come in and install their remote access software so that they can keep the plant up and running. I mean, that's important. But then they either forget it wasn't secure in the first place, whatever. But that becomes just a wide open door for somebody to get in. And so, this is kind of the homework for you as a business owner on this episode is to look at all the places where you are exposed to the outside world, where they can get into your system. And as we've already said, it's really complicated right now to define that system. Where are the boundaries? I don't know. You do have to. That's why there's so much overlap. Is it your HR software? Is it your IT company and how, or any outside support that has remote access into your system? I mean, every time we go do an assessment, Mario, we find remote access that somebody has that's been left open, right? I don't think I've ever seen it not be there.
No, I've never seen it not there, and sometimes I've seen it from the IT companies prior to them, and even prior to them.
Right.
I've gone on to, done assessments or new customers, and we've noticed they've had LogMeIn, they have TeamViewer, they have Ninja. They had so many different softwares, and then when you ask their existing IT company, how are you remoting in? They're like, oh well, we're using Microsoft Quick Connect.
Yeah.
Then we're like, who the hell is using all the other ones then?
Right.
And there's some cases where it just sits there lingering around because it was not properly uninstalled when the other IT company took over. And guess what happens? Either one of many things could happen is somebody still has access to it, or it's a remote access software that's over there that is not being monitored and patched. And
Exactly. I was going to say that.
where the biggest problem is. If it's not patched, it can be a huge issue.
Yeah. And here's, okay, so this is, and I'm a little aggressive with this one, but my personal philosophy on this, when I find a remote access system of any sort, if it is not documented, I shut it off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let them complain. At least then I know who's using it and for what, and I'll go back in and put it in the right way, or check into it. But it's a little bit intimidating, I think, to go in and just start slashing software that you don't know, what's it being used for.
Yeah.
If it's not documented, it's unsafe. Get rid of it.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll ask like the office manager or the owner, like, hey, I noticed you have this. Do you know what that's used for? If he says no, okay,
it's gone.
Gone. Yeah, and yes, in some cases it's a couple days later somebody will say, hey, this person is trying to work from home and they can't connect. Then, at least then we know, we document it. We're like, okay, they're using this and this and this.
Right. All right. So Mario, this one I want to keep intentionally short today. We're all long-winded, so short is relative. But do you have anything else you feel we've missed? I think we've said it all, but do you have any closing arguments for today's episode?
Pretty much just emphasizing like what we talked about before. A lot of times people are asking you questions to see how secure you guys are, or what do you have in place that is going to protect them, if they partner with you. You should be doing the same thing with your customers, your vendors, your partners, or even subcontractors or anything like that. Like we work a lot with the construction industry, and we see a lot. They'll work with like a small like shop, like an electrician or something like that. Those people never have the security in place that they need, and that's where they may have access to shared documents or SharePoint, or even just sending you an email, because that's going to come right through spam filters. They may use them as a springboard to get to you. So you need to vet the people that you're partnering with on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to repeat what I said, and I've said it on several episodes because it just continues to be the place where we need to start is, and I mean, I don't care if you legitimately are using a pencil and paper or a spreadsheet or whatever, but write down every vendor that you have, and maybe we've got a column for, do you even know what access they have into your system? And I'll say, if you don't know, you're not alone, because most businesses don't know. This is one of those things that creeps and sprawls and gets out of control, and it's got to be reined back in. So step one is just write it down. And I don't know, you can bring your IT partner, your MSP into this, because they can run a report on all the software that's installed throughout your entire network. And these days, it's pretty easy because you can take that list and throw it into AI and say, spit out a list of all of the remote access, anything that needs to be secured. You can kind of throw that into AI, and because otherwise it's almost impossible. If I run a report on what software is installed on even a small network, it comes back with thousands of applications, because it includes everything that Microsoft builds, everything that Adobe builds, it's like, it's a very unwieldy list.
But you could also, using that same tool, you could also tell it, let me know which ones are outdated or significantly outdated.
Yeah.
And then you can, narrow down the list. Like, okay, we don't need any of these remote tools. This stuff is outdated. And that's where you may want to have a conversation with your third party, with your like IT company, MSP or whatever. Like, find out, are you doing third party patching? Why are you not updating QuickBooks or updating, Adobe and stuff like that? And maybe it's something more that they can do for you.
Yeah. And I would say, this process as to how to find the stuff that you don't know about. Also go through, and I use this process to back up data for our data backup and retention policies, is we just go through the business operations. How do you bring clients in? All your sales and marketing process, what software is used for that? How do you deliver your services? What software is used for that? How do you bill? How do you do all your admin work? What software is used for that? HR, finance, all of those. List all of those things out. And then you run some sort of a risk assessment on them, or at least a column that you check off. Do you know, yes or no, what access they have and what access they don't have? And then just start closing those gaps, right? That would be my best advice. And I apologize. Obviously, I forgot to mute all my phones before I started recording. Got this goddamn ringing in the background. So,
and Brian is not here, but this is also something. It's that I want to say, it's not a set it or forget it. It's something that you constantly have to do. Little by little, build up. At least one day you're doing the softwares on your computer. One day, who has access and what applications have access to your Microsoft 365. That single sign-in, that doesn't just magically, because you have a 365 account, it works. It actually has to link into your 365 platform. And you're able to go in there and see what applications, or it's called enterprise applications, that actually has access to your Microsoft 365. Maybe one of your employees is using it, without your knowledge. And and knowledge is key. If you don't know, then you can't protect it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Mario. I said we're keeping it short. We're at 30 minutes. It's a little short.
It's not bad.
It's
one of our
bad.
Smaller ones.
It's a little bit. So I'm just going to say what I always say here. Get a third-party assessment. Bring somebody in to help you with this stuff. Do your own due diligence as a business owner, because a lot of this stuff you need to be tracking on your own. But the stuff that's harder to find, where you need somebody to run an inventory on your entire network, bring in your MSP and hold their feet to the fire a little bit. That's your best bet here. So kind of wrapping this up with the question of, as a business owner, do you know all of your vendors, and do you know who has access to what? Again, I'm gonna throw this out on social media, and I'm gonna try to get some feedback on that. Just kind of get a gut check on what's important to people and how we can better help. So that will all be available on unhackmybusiness.com. Go there for today's episode. Go there for the surveys that we talk about, all the resources. That's where those are going to live if they're not there yet. We're working on it. Again, this is not my day job, so I am admitting I'm a little bit behind on some of this stuff, but there is good content there. So, Mario, go ahead and say goodbye. I'll say goodbye, and then we're going to get out of here, and we'll see you guys in a week or so.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us. And just remember, if you need peace of mind, if we've worried you enough and you need peace of mind, reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to help you narrow down your list and point you in the right direction. And Justin has never said this, and I don't think we've ever said this, but like and subscribe.
That's right. Help us get those numbers up.
Yeah.
Listen, we are trying to provide a free service to the community, so all that help is appreciated. With that, I am Justin. Remember, listen in, take action, and keep your businesses unhacked.
Unhacked.
We'll see you next week.